Hi, welcome to Edward Boss Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspection today is Rush's Farewell to Kings. So this was released on September the 1st, 1977. It's 45 years old today. And it's a seminal Rush album. So this is album number 5, building on the breakthrough of 2112. Let's dive in and have a look into it. So in terms of its background, I'm just looking at a few notes here on the computer. The band did a 16-month tour for 2112, and then they just, like a lot of young bands, and they just dive straight back into the recording and writing process. They decided and they elected to record outside of Toronto for the first time, and it took them quite a while to nail down a studio, but in the end they went to Rockfield Studios in Monmouth in Wales. So this is a famous studio in the history of rock, because it's where Queen recorded A Night at the Opera in 1975, and it's where Judas Priest did Sad Wings of Destiny as well in 76. So I'm guessing that might have played a part of the track record of the studio, and the band decided to go there. Also, Led Zeppelin had been up into Wales for writing sessions. I think Led Zeppelin 3 was written in, is it Bromwell, the cottage. So guessing that as Zepp fans, that would have appealed to them as well, I think. And it created a mellow and enclosed atmosphere where they could create. On this album, they also decided to play different instruments that they could recreate live. Like Neil Peart, I'm just looking on here, obviously he's got orchestral bells, tubular bells, chimes, other percussion. Geddy's playing double neck bass and mini moog, and Alex tried out some new guitars for the first time, and that actually opens up the album. Opens up with a nylon string intro in a sort of quasi-classical and medieval style for the intro to the title track Farewell to Kings. So this is a great track. The length of this one, I think, is 5:51. Yeah, so it's music's Lee Lifeson Peart. I'm guessing Neil's written the lyrics on this. And yeah, it's cool on this. You sort of notice like Alex's guitar sounding cleaner, even cleaner than it does on 2112. It's got that zingy chorus and that spread to the sound that's kind of Rush are famous for. The bass has got the usual sort of Geddy clank, but that kind of warmth. I think the drums are a little more tepid on this. I don't think they're quite dialed in Neil's drum sound on this as much. I'm just looking at Neil's lyric aspects, and it doesn't actually give much info what he was writing about, but he kind of worked up the idea with the encouragement of Ray Daniels. I think they wanted, that's the Rush's manager, I think they wanted an album title as well. The actual album cover, which is great, obviously this is back to front on here. It's Hugh Syme did that, but it's actually shot outside Buffalo, New York, and at some hotel you can see in the background apparently. Next track, Xanadu. So this is an all-time Rush classic. This is 11 minutes and 5, sorry. And that basically was side 1 of the original vinyl on the album. So this is based on the poem Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. So you can hear like how Iron Maiden have been influenced by this. They did Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is also Samuel Taylor Coleridge poem. I was actually reading a bit about Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Apparently he was depressive, and they reckon he was probably bipolar. He had quite a lot of health problems as well. Quite interesting, and drank a lot. But he lived to 61. But anyway, it says Peart based it on Citizen Kane before he found Coleridge's poem. So obviously Orson Welles is Citizen Kane. The house he lives in, which is based on William Randolph Hearst, the newspaper magnate, is called Xanadu. So I'm guessing that's where the title came from, and then he's taken inspiration from the poem. Probably, about isolation and wealth. I'm sort of thinking that's kind of like the theme. This is great. This has got the sort of 10/8, I think it's 10/8, the main guitar riff, because it starts off with like, kind of atmospheric sounds, synth. Then you've got that picked part in, arpeggiated part that Alex plays, and then the dan, 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 dan. And on that, Alex is using sort of A shape for guitars. He's kind of using A shape bar chords, and then probably like a kind of F shape, and probably inversions as well of the major chords. And again, that's a kind of different sound. Typically, Rush in early days Alex was just playing straight power chords, and he started to put in more open kind of triad chords. and here he's using like upper triads and, like I said, the A-shaped bar chord, and it just gives it a different sound, especially again with his cleanness of his distorted sound. It just means you can play those types of chord voicing. It doesn't sound cluttered, and again, that's just something that sets Rush apart from others. So side two opens with a total classic, Closer to the Heart. This is only 2 minutes and 52, and it's remarkable what the band accomplish with this song. These types of songs are so important in Rush's history, because there's so many other progressive rock bands just can't write short songs that kind of keep the sort of progressive DNA, but are kind of more accessible that like more regular people who maybe aren't into classic rock would go, oh, I really like that. So for instance, Close to the Heart could be on classic rock radio and someone could like really enjoy the track. You know, it's not like they have to delve into kind of a 10-minute tune. But it's great, got a lovely pick guitar part by Alex, great lyrics by Neil. And Geddy sings a great vocal. Obviously, Geddy gets knocked as a singer. He's a bit Marmite for people because it's the frequency of his voice is very high. He doesn't, he doesn't have a ballsy sort of rock voice, but even though he can really give it some beans. So he's not the typical kind of classic rock singer. He's more like John Anderson, Yes, with that high frequency, but, he's hitting stuff in his chest range and really going for it. But it's absolute classic. Next up is Cinderella Man, 4 minutes 19. This is a good album track. It's kind of deeper cut off the album. Nicely played, nicely put together, and fits like the mood of the album, and so on. And then you've got Madrigal. This is a track I'm not as fussed about, 2 minutes 33. This one, it just feels like an afterthought to me. It's like not a fully developed song. Obviously, it makes it. I think the album's length is 37:13. It was actually recorded in the June of 1977 over 3 weeks, and then it was mixed over 2 weeks in another studio. Obviously they put it in there. They probably need some extra material, but it just, like I say, it just feels like it's not developed properly. So the last track is Cygnus X1, Book 1, The Voyage. So this is a sci-fi conceptual piece that Neil has developed. He's reading up about black holes, apparently interstellar travel, I guess. Obviously this gets a part 2 on the next album, Hemispheres. So this is a long track, it's 10 minutes 21. Actually starts off with a really gnarly kind of bass part, this. And I think the opening of this is the one that reminds me of someone like Yes. You can really hear the Yes influence on the intro of this because it's got that slightly kind of atonal, not as nice and melodic type of aspect to it. I do really like this track. Sometimes it's quite an angry track. It's not always melodic. It's got some kind of Alex is kind of vamping on a minor chord, but then it kind of moves down a couple of hertz, I think. So it's got like a modal sound, but not, like I said, not really melodic. And then there's a bit where Geddy kind of does a shouty scream. And then it breaks down into the middle bit with kind of explosion sounds, and it's like the sound of resting in space, which is really cool and pretty bold of the band to do that. Lee thought the science fiction genre presented limited ideas, which gave the band the excuse to use all the goofy, weird sounds because that's what's happening out of space. So I'm just reading that off Wikipedia there. So obviously the band decided they'd get all the studio gizmos out. Then again, in space, if there's no, molecules, you can't hear sound because you don't travel. But anyway, maybe I'm wrong with that. That hotel in the background's called a Harbour Castle Hotel. It's a composite photo. I'm wrong with that. It's a building site in Buffalo, in New York. And then the Harbour Castle Hotel's in the background from Toronto, and like Hugh Symes composed them together. This did better for Rush, this album. It charted in the top 40 in America, top 40 in Britain. I think it was one of the first albums of theirs to go gold. Since then, I imagine it's gone platinum, and I'm just going to check that. Doesn't actually say here, sorry. Billboard chart number 33. So basically kind of secured things for the band after 2112, and on the when do I prefer this to 2112? In some ways I do. Probably because you hear those 2112 tracks a bit more, you hear those more often. So when you delve into this album, I think the first 4 tracks work brilliantly. Madrigals are no. Cygnus X1's experimental. It doesn't always work, but you kind of need that track to get to the next album, Hemispheres, and like the big piece that will make up side one. So I've probably missed a few things there. There's a lot you can say about Rush albums, but of course the playing's always stellar. And this is in that era of Rush on a run of classic albums. So there you go, Farewell to Kings, 45 years old today. See you soon, hope you enjoyed that, thank you.